Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a great day. So, I want to talk today about the television series Foundation. Um, Here on the Education Entertainment television show, we have, I guess, become more so 90% of a cryptocurrency show now, simply because I think that's one of the big things that's happening right now. It's this new cutting edge technology that a lot of us feel is very important to so many different facets of what our futures are going to be, from the political through the social, the economic. And so that's why it has become so important on this channel. But I think it's important to note that a lot of our channel was also about a lot of, thought provoking cinema, television shows, movies. And I try to pick the ones that are thought provoking. I try not to pick based on popularity. And that's simply because I think it's just so many great YouTubers out there that do reviews so very well. So the only time I really like to visit this area is when there's a very thought-provoking show out there. And we've had some really good, well done shows that have have received Emmys and various awards. Um, because they've been so well done. Game of Thrones, they were a fantasy show that received the Emmy in a drama. And interesting enough, Foundation is being more so considered drama than a science fiction show, right? So that's very interesting. I think that speaks to just how well some of these shows can be done. But let's talk a little bit about what Foundation is. So first off, it's based on a series of books that was written by Isaac Asimov, right? The very the science fiction writer, very intelligent person who's brought us many great books of science fiction, right? Um, Now, what's so interesting about Foundation is that when we visit the sci-fi genre, oftentimes what comes to mind is the granddaddy seems to be Dune, the Dune series of books written by Frank Herbert, and many of us are aware of that because there's a remake of Dune gonna be out in about a less than 2 months. That is being done by Denis Villeneuve, right? And so we're going to speak to some of the comparisons of that. But many of us consider Dune the granddaddy. But would it surprise you to know that a lot of the inspiration of Dune comes from this series, Foundation? Yet another one of these adaptations from books that many people believe can never be adapted to the screen. And we're going to talk in this video review about some of the reasons why that is. But um, looking at something like Dune and that kind of being the model for most of all our modern day science fiction, to go, well, but Dune had an inspiration from something, it would make that thing so much bigger in a sense. And that's Foundation, right? So even if we look at something like Star Wars, they'll say something like, "Well, Star Wars, a lot of the idea of Star Wars comes from Dune, right?" Wow. So the idea of Star Wars comes from Dune. Where's the idea of Dune come from? Some people would say Foundation, right? So I want to talk about some of those comparisons. I want to talk about how the first two episodes went, and my overall thoughts on this series, right? So first off, as you can see from this image here, it seems to be a procession. What you're looking at is a member of the Imperium, and this is known as Brother Day, right? And what Brother Day is, let's think in terms of Star Wars, the Galactic Empire, Dune, another galactic empire, and Foundation is about yet another galactic empire what that encompasses many star systems in it, right? So these are very huge, advanced civilizations with space travel, with mastery of mind, body, and arts, and so on, right? So and there's this political intrigue that follows all three of them. Of course, we knew the war of the Skywalker families, right? With with the Emperor, right? And in Dune, it was the Atreides family, and in here in a foundation is who they refer to as, I believe, the Cleons, which is this Imperium that basically is run and controlled by three clones. Now, here's also what I want to say, um, and that is that I'm coming into this. I haven't read any of the books, and that's my favorite way to come into a series, because many series I've come into, I have read many of the books, and I found, I have a lot of foreknowledge of, what could happen and what's going on. But it is a treat for me to once again be able to view something and try to figure out things as I go along. So far, I know the connections to these sci-fi genres, and it being an inspiration for pretty much all of the modern day ones, if you're going to say it's the inspiration for Dune. But not familiar with the books, not at all. And so I'm coming from this, and it's just as the TV adaptation. And what that's going to mean is that's going to mean that there are going to be things different from the books, I'm sure. My understanding is they have made a few changes to the characters. And so there are going to be things that I'm not aware of that I'm glad, because there is something about surprise and seeing something with fresh eyes. I think that is a very enjoyable experience for me, right? But basically, the whole idea behind this sci-fi novel is basically based on one of their leading scientists who deals with something called psychohistory. And this is predictive mathematics of what's going to happen in the future. So it's basically being able to predict the future from machines and algorithms and mathematical forms. Oh, excuse me. Okay, and this is what I want to do. I want to focus on these characters, right? And who you see from left to right, you see Brother Day, who is part of the Imperium, right? And I'm going to explain a little bit more detail about that in a second. Salvatore in the middle, and we're going to talk about them as well. And then you get to Henry Sheldon, who is the scientist I was just speaking about, who uses what is called psychohistory, right? And with psychohistory, he's able to once again predict the future, right? Through mathematics. At least people believe he can. Um, Now, the problem isn't that he can predict the future with this mathematics, the opinion is, but it is that his prediction is what the empire doesn't like, right? And what's happening here is the predictions are saying that the empire within 500 years will fall. And this is very interesting because uh, what it's essentially saying is that this very advanced culture and civilization is going to enter a very long period of dark ages for about 30,000 years. So it's so bad and irrevocably done that it cannot be changed. And for 30,000 years, they will have to be in this dark period, these dark ages, as it were, unless they start making preparations for it. Now, the problem with these predictions and so on and so forth is it's almost like a doomsday scenario, a predicting doomsday, like a predicting the apocalypse, and if everybody in the civilization believed it, the chaos that would ensue, the ability for this empire not to be able to hold itself together for the next 500 years, based on maybe people would be going, well, why should I keep order and listen in this sense? We won't be around. So there are just these many concerns about the lasting of this empire, much like any human civilization, I think would be greatly concerned about their future generations going backwards in a sense, right? Go imagine if we were to go back to the prehistoric times or go back to the first century or go back to caveman days or what have you. So Henry Sheldon has become the heretic of the empire, right? And the Imperium is so afraid of this information getting out, they're willing to kill people to keep it suppressed. And he's put on trial. Now, this is where our story takes off. There is a main character by the name of Gal. She's not shown in the picture here, but she is kind of like the understudy of Henry Sheldon, the leading scientist, and he finds her through a competition. And the entire idea of the competition, is to find somebody who can basically uh, 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 understand this mathematical formulas through this cycle history, how the method to predict what the future is going to bring. Now, I want to make some comparisons, and I kind of want to stick on this Dune comparison thing right now because I know a lot of YouTubers are going to review the episodes and they're going to tell you everything that happened with them. And so I want to kind of just bring a unique view where we kind of I want to touch on details that you might not get from them, right? And they're good, but just in case. So let's make some connections to Dune, something a lot of people are familiar with. It's coming out in November, right? With Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya and many other full cast, Oscar Isaacs and so on. Uh, so they're using uh, this cycle history, which is predictive formula. Now this is kind of also reminiscent of me, and I just want to Westworld. People who are familiar with the last season of Westworld, where they finally get to these algorithms, these artificial minds called Jeroboam and Rehoboam, which are biblical figures, but they use this technology to pretty much predict what the future is going to be. Now, uh, a lot of people might find this quite interesting that we have technology that's very similar to that now. There in I believe it's in Chicago now. There is a computer algorithm that police units are using where they're actually able to predict ahead of time where crime's going to occur and what the crime may be. It's very interesting. And as we get into quantum computers in the future and advanced computer sciences, a civilization like this might be thousands, millions of years ahead of us. But you can imagine something like this being quite relevant and possible to what we're doing now, and where that possibility exists in the dangers that have come along. That kind of similar to Minority Report. So when you think about all these various science fiction writers, Philip K. Dick, who wrote Minority Report, and also did a Blade Runner or Why Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. When you take that, look at people like Ray Kurzweil, right, who's always talking about predicting the future, right, uh, with these computer systems. That's pretty much what psychohistory is. I think it's more so in their galaxy, there's a mastery of it, right? And so the character I mentioned earlier, Gal, the protege, she's the only person who can prove that the scientist is wrong. And the entire episode was about them trying to get her. And again, you guys probably knew what happened with that. And again, I just kind of want to touch on some interesting outside points and tips you might not get from other reviewers. And that's why I'm going about it this way. So in the Dune series, right, what you get is you get a lot of this kind of science meets religion, and that's the same thing you get here in Foundation. You get a mix of science meets religion. In fact, the character I just spoke about, she's actually running from her world because science is something that they outlaw basically, and these type of studies, and they're all kind of like religious cults and sects. So it's kind of very similar, I think, back then to Galileo's time, right? And in Galileo's time, he's been prosecuted by the church, and that's the similar thing was happening here, right? So this is, you can see all these parallels come together. Um, Now, the entire idea behind Foundation in these opening episodes is to figure out a way in order uh, 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 to shorten. They can't stop this coming cataclysm, the end of the empire, the fall of the empire, but to try to get humanity back on track as fast as possible, right? And they do this by preserving culture and knowledge through a archive, a library, if you will, right? And this is a project that they're exiled, as we got to see through the episodes, they're exiled on, to work on. They're given first the choice of death because they refuse to ignore the knowledge and tell the empire and tell the citizens that it's false and they made it up. So by telling the truth, the punishment is death. But the emperor, the imperium figures out that, hey, well, we really don't have to kill them because they could be right. We can use them to try to fix the problem if it's fixable, right? And if it's not fixable, there's still not going to be a problem for the empire because we're going to, banish them from, the any influence, right? So it's back reminiscent now of our historical dark ages, and we're talking about probably going into after the fall of the Roman Empire, over the next 400 or 500 years, we get into the Dark Ages, which lasts about 1,000 years, right? Until we get up until like the Renaissance period. And that's why it's called the Renaissance, right? And then the Age of Reason, so on and so forth. So you could tell that these are the historical context and ideas behind the show, and that is the getting history and what they're going to do by this Library of Alexandria, if you will, because that's basically what they're building, the Library of Alexandria. If you're not familiar with that, it is all the knowledge that existed uh, before the Dark Ages came in. The library was burned, a lot of great knowledge lost out of it, and people didn't have those records to get themselves back on track. So it takes them thousands of years to get, it takes like 1,000 years. Now with foundation, the play on the word foundation, to build a foundation for humanity, what they're doing is they're basically taking this knowledge and building this library that they want human beings to be able to find in the future and get everything back on track within 1,000 years, as opposed to 30,000 years, which is what the predictive math says. So um, uh, this is how the story goes, and of course throughout that it's all everything else that's going on in the galaxy, a lot of political issues that exist in many empires. um, this feels so very relevant, I think, to us in today's terms, because as we advance further into the future and the future gets more certain, technology gets more far advanced, robotics and automation replace human beings, robots take over. The science writer Isaac Asimov, he's already always done a lot of series about robots then warring with humans, and all this happens in Foundation, right? Here's the crazy thing about Foundation. Unlike your Star Wars and Dune series, Foundation to me seems like almost like a predictive mathematical writing itself as to what our futures will look like, and a pretty realistic one, because Foundation doesn't really do a lot of the mystery religion stuff like what you get in Star Wars, the religion of the Jedi, and what you get in Dune, the religion of the Muad'Dib, the Kwisatz Haderach. It much more so touches on like things in our science we can see probably likely happening or a good idea about. Now, even though the first two episodes don't tell us this, I can kind of feel through the connections drawn to Dune that there is going to be some mysticism in it. And our main character, Gal, who in the beginning right now is seeming like they're trying to relay the idea that she is just doing all this because she's really intelligent and smart in mathematics and she's figuring out by that. There's also indicators in the episodes that there's something going on with her and her brain and the things she can do that is outside of the math. Like this is just something in her that allows her to do this. And I don't know if they're going to go with she has some heightened awareness similar to like the God Emperor of the Dune series, or whatever it may be. Um, and so I guess it's kind of like a spoiler free review in a way. So that's kind of good. I don't have to put spoilers on it because I think I'm going to stay away from recapping the episode. But here's what some of the critics are saying as well, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. They're saying that Foundation is just like the Dune movies that are coming out. They're saying that this can't be adapted to the screen or television. And they may very well be right because I haven't read the books, and oftentimes when I do read books, I understand what they're saying, that books are just far greater. But I could tell you as a person who's not familiar with these books, just coming into the series and the episodes, that I was impressed with the budget. I was impressed with everything I saw. I didn't think it was just like, I didn't walk away from it kind of like I did with Game of Thrones type stuff, on that level, at least the first few seasons of Game of Thrones where I was just blown away and had to watch it. This is something I like to watch. I like to continue to watch. But if I like miss episodes of this, I wouldn't go crazy, but I am very interested in this because it's supposed to be one of the greatest works of science fiction, but people are waiting to see how well it does. And I'm going to tell you that I think a lot of them are going to be disappointed who probably read the books, even though I haven't read the books, and I'm going to tell you why that is because even just looking at it for myself, whereas I thought it was good, I didn't think it was great. And you got some good actors in there, right? You got some pretty good actors. I recognize some of these actors from The Crown. I recognize some of them from further shows I've seen. But it's something that, and it may get better as it goes on, but it's something here that doesn't quite do it for me, although the visuals are great, the budget is great. I can tell they've done a lot. Maybe it's the acting. It could be the acting because the main character seems fairly young, and that's what the direction they're seeming to take in the Dune series as well, with Timothy Chalamet casting very young actors and actresses because they're young in the books, right? But I'm going to tell you, and I'm just going to be honest with you, even though they're young in the books, and I know they want to be more accurate to the books, in reality, sometimes it's just only so much you can get from a young person, actor and actress. And that's not their fault. It's just the experience and how long they've been in acting and so on. And some of them can pull a lot of maturity at a very young age in a very complex novel. But, in this case, I don't think that's what's happening. I think we're going to get a good series, but not a great series. And I think the kind of money that they're spending, I think they spent like $43 million on the first few, episodes or something. I don't know if they're going to get that back. They may end up spending $100 million this year. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought I saw $43 million for the first few episodes, or it could be for the entire season. And sci-fi budgets are very, very, are very, very huge. They're big. They cost a lot, and so Game of Thrones will spend like $100 million a season. So if they're only spending $43 million a season doing a sci-fi budget, it's probably gonna not be. It's gonna. I think it's gonna probably remain good, but not great. And so, but I'm going to definitely stay tuned to keep watching it and talk about the other episodes. But I hope that kind of gives you an idea of what Foundation is about. I'm going to say the two episodes were good. They weren't great, they were good. I'm going to say the actors were good. I think the best actor so far in the series, I'm not familiar with this actor's name, but he's the guy who plays the Emperor. I was always interested in what he was doing. And Henry Sheldon, the scientist here to the far right. He's a very well done casted actor. Everybody else I didn't see as stand out as I seen as anybody could have done that. And so these two people are going to have to carry the show. But the problem is the lead scientist, he's dead already. So that's not good. That means that the emperor is going to have to carry the show. But that's the idea behind Foundation. Tell me what you thought about the episode. Give me all your comments about, if you could see the connections with the Dune, the books, the God Emperor books. Oh, and I didn't touch on how the Imperium works, but they are clones. And to me, that's kind of similar to what they do with the Dune God Emperor because he just lives that long because he has the spice in him. He's changing and he's drinking the water of life. He's become this super being. But with these guys, the emperor does die a natural death. But what he does is he clones versions of him to rule the empire all through the stages of his life. So he calls one Don, which is a very young version, adolescent version of himself, and then Day, brother Day, which is a clone version who you're seeing here in this episode. He's more the forceful ruler of the empire, pretty much does everything. And then it's kind of an older, wiser version of him he calls Dusk, right? Symbolizing the end of this beginning of life and the end of life. Dawn, day, and dusk, right? The complete cycle of the day, of the lives of the clones. And they rule the empire forever. But in order for the history to go forward and the empire to last and civilization to not end, at some point they have to be extinguished, right? You have to get rid of the Imperium. And I think I'm going to do a part 2 review on this simply because there's a lot more details I want to talk about in this and a lot more comparisons I want to make to this. So I might do it on the next episode, going into the next episode, and then talk about that episode. But I really want to set it up because, again, this is supposed to be one of the greatest works of science fiction ever created and pretty much the progenitor of the entire modern day science fiction genre. But that's all I want to say in this video. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me, do you think it's better than Dune? Is it similar to Dune or what have you? Have you read the books? Let me know in the comment section. Until next time, as always, take care of yourselves and each other.